Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, and here we discuss those various things that you need to be worried about as you're growing your business and building the premier accounting firm in your area. It's here in this podcast that we address things that are related to your being a great leader, managing your employees with confidence, obviously working on things related to marketing, selling, pricing, and so many other things that encourage you to actually grow your business to offer quality accounting services and take care of the clients that you have. All of this with the intent of also getting you paid what you're worth. Each and every week, we have an episode on where we interview the guests, those experts in our space that actually have insights on what it is we can be working on to work on our business. Now, this is going to be a wonderful episode, and I've been looking forward to this for some time now. Michelle Quinonez happens to be a person that is very dedicated to her clients and works in her business. And she is the owner and founder of MR Books Advisory and Pocket Your Profit, where Michelle offers virtual CFO and custom accounting services. MR Books Advisory exists to empower business owners to own their financial success, replacing confusion, stress, and uncertainty with clarity, freedom, and control. It's your business. Your profit should come first. This is not your typical CFO and bookkeeping firm. She actually serves entrepreneurs and small business owners to grow their businesses profitably. She teaches them how to stop living or working paycheck to paycheck with that limiting mindset. She helps them solve that dead-end income problem by empowering small business owners towards freedom and profitability. Pocket Your Profit provides a level of insight, education, and implementation that is focused on inspiring mutually financially successful businesses. Her philosophy and expertise is to maximize money and time through profit-focused cash management and scalable systems. This approach provides both businesses and business leaders with the keys to unlock financial success and freedom. So, Michelle, welcome to the show.
Hi, Roger. Thank you so much for having me.
This is going to be wonderful. So first of all, where I typically like to start is just giving some context as to how you got into the accounting profession. What drew you to this? Was this something that you intended to do, or did you stumble into it? Give us a little bit of a backstory.
Yeah, I kind of actually really like my backstory because it's something that I hope I also do for my team members and the people around me. I was intended to do something actually in the counseling realm. That is what I went to school for. And when I was doing my undergraduate in counseling, I had some professors who had a bunch of side businesses. They were definitely entrepreneurs, had multiple businesses. And so they took me under their wing and asked if, I'd like a part-time job, and they'd pay me. And they became, like family, but they taught me all their bookkeeping, taught me how to do payroll, taught me how to code and do that stuff. And so from there, I just recognized that was easy for me. And she hired me once she started her own counseling and therapy practice. And I kind of administrated then. I was just running her office. Uh-huh. So that's where I started. And this is where I've ended up.
I love it. So what would take you from that to actually deciding to actually start your own business?
Yeah. So that's the other thing that I learned very early on, kind of in college, was I could not have a boss. I didn't do well with a boss.
Okay.
So I always had some sort of, for my little word is hustle. I had multiple part-time something going on that I did.
Love it.
And so when I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time, about 6-7 years, and when I came back out of that, was ready to actually start earning my living again, that for me was the only choice because I want to work for myself.
And when you chose to actually start your own business, what were you intending to start as a company? What did you feel you could bring to the business community that was unique?
Well, that was a little bit of a journey. When I first started doing, after the stay-at-home mom phase and coming back out into the work world, I first started, it was kind of a very tumultuous time in my personal life. And so I didn't really have an intention. I just knew I needed to make money. I didn't want a boss, and I like this kind of work. Mm-hmm. After a couple of years, that's when I started realizing, with the clients that I was working with, what kind of impact not only could I have with them, but did I enjoy making? And that impact was generally around bringing peace, bringing calm, bringing clarity to something that is often very either confusing or stressful for a lot of business owners, their money. So that's kind of, where that came from.
Well, one of the things that you actually mentioned that I really like to focus on is how you said that when you started your business, a lot of it was actually to basically employ yourself, have a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel so many can relate to that because they're not typically thinking at it from that business owner mindset of, I'm going to be really strategic and look at my unique selling proposition. I'm going to find out what niche I'm going to focus on. Generally, it's just I'm going to start my business and I'm going to take anyone and everything that I can do to actually make an income. It's
Mm-hmm.
only a little bit later that most actually realize I need to be a little bit more intentional and deliberate in my business model and have that unique selling proposition, be very, very strategic in the services I'm providing, the pricing that I'm using. And all of a sudden, those things kind of come down a little later after getting the business license and acquiring that first client. So I can relate to what it is you're describing because I've heard that story so many times. Now, you also said something that I really wanted to hone in on. It sounds like you were looking at, with your clients, a unique relationship, kind of approaching business from the state of a being. I know this is something that you talk about of, this mindset, this attitude towards business. Elaborate on that a little bit more.
Yeah, it's kind of, maybe you could call it trendy right now, but it's something I really live by. There's two different states of kind of approaching life in general, and that's the state of doing or the state of being.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us are often in the state of doing, especially West American culture. That's kind of how we're raised. Maybe it's prevalent in other cultures as well, but
it's that hustle you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, you approach, the tasks that you're going to mark off, and it's focused on, it's just task focused. It's how focused. It's action focused.
Yes.
And what I realized when I was working with my clients on a small level, I had very few clients because I was by myself, working just by myself. So I could really get to know them, was that who I am and who I'm being in a situation is so much more important. And also coming at a situation, business in particular, the state of being really likes to focus on the whys behind things, why you're doing things. Instead of the hows. It likes to focus on the kind of the energy that you're bringing to a situation instead of what you're doing in the situation. And so that's been a lot of how I coach my clients if I'm consulting with them as a CFO around their money. I mean, all of that plays so much into how I interact with my clients and with my team as well.
Do you find that the business owners can relate to what it is you're describing here because they are perhaps in that hustle themselves? How do you get them to see that this state of being is a little bit different?
Well, I think, it's interesting that you say that. I've never really broken it down. With my team, I'm much more coaching them to be in that state of being. So we talk about it often, what it actually is, and we talk about the fact that I'm doing it intentionally. What does that look like to do that intentionally, care about, spend time on my state of mind, spend time, meditate, those sorts of things, make sure I'm in the right place when I am doing business. So I coach my team on how I do that, why I do that. I'm very open with them about it. With my clients, I don't really speak about it in that way. I just try to exemplify it. I think more. And with my clients, they may hear it though in places like where I use the words are very important to me because to me, a word that you use will impact the energy that you have. So if I tell you, you need to tighten your belt, that has a certain energy. If I tell you, you need to, it would be good to align yourself with your financial goals and stick within those goals and be aligned, that has a different energy. So that's kind of how I use it with clients. It's just in how I work with them. I don't necessarily tell them that that's what I'm doing.
Exactly. Okay, that's interesting. Now, I'm going to bring up something here that you may or may not be familiar with. So I'm curious if you're familiar with, in Japanese, there's, in the Japanese culture, there's a concept. It's called ikigai, I think is how it's pronounced. And it's this diagram of where an individual is trying to find this Zen state, let's call it, where essentially they're taking what they love, what they're good at, what they need to be doing and what they are paid to do, and you try and converge them to where you have this relationship of the passion that you have, your purpose, your mission, your profession, and your vocation, and you draw them together. And as they come together, you get in this state of being, as you're describing it. They literally call it, and as I understand the phrase, ikigai is a reason for being. So is that anything you're familiar with?
I'm not familiar with that in particular. I do a lot of studies in kind of Eastern, either religions or Eastern philosophies. So that is something I definitely need to look into.
Yeah.
Mainly because Eastern philosophy is good at combining the two, the being, and the doing. They're very good at that. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So I probably slaughtered it in Japanese. I don't have the accent, but ikigai, I believe is how it's pronounced. But the point is it's, I think, very much attuned with what you're trying to describe, that we have this inner self, this longing. I think a lot of people will define it as what they identify with. It's them being true to themselves. And I feel in our culture, there's a lot of interest in being true to oneself. And all of a sudden, when you bring that work element into that and you find that harmony, all of a sudden somebody feels like they're working with purpose, with intent towards being true to themselves. And so that's how how it's resonating with me as you're describing it. And honestly, in the Western culture, you'll hear it oftentimes where people are saying, find that hobby, that interest that you have, and get paid doing what you love. I mean, that's the thing that I think a lot of people are familiar with.
Yeah, I grew up with that. My dad is a pilot, but he knew he wanted to fly since he was, 12 years old. So he would tell us that constantly, do what you love, do what you love. So I think that's where I've gravitated to.
Excellent.
It's grown into this. Absolutely. And it also kind of brings you to that place. It allows for you to be in a place of kind of no judgment of others or yourself. So when I was working as a solopreneur, and, I was making what I made. I worked the hours that I worked. I was happy. That was what I wanted at the time. That was my goal. That was all I needed, I traveled a lot. I worked remote. And then my goals changed, and that's okay too, because I was being, like you said, true to myself.
Yeah. Another thing that I know that you talk about is financial transparency. And it's kind of an interesting thing. You hear about these types of ideals when it comes to accounting. You're trying to obviously help your business owner client understand all the financials and so forth. But what does it mean to say financial transparency?
Yeah. So financial transparency is something that I've been, I guess, kind of in discovering for myself in the last couple of years. And I realized that, it's very unique to those of us who are in some sort of a financial profession, so accounting would be that, in the sense that it's hard to be financially transparent in any role, in anywhere in life. Money is one of those topics you just don't talk about. And so if you go to any coaching or, wealth type mindset coaches, that sort of thing, everyone will tell you, you need to talk about it, like talk about money, talk about it, normalize it, make it normal. And then I realized that, but for financial professionals, you almost feel like you're even more limited, right? Because it's part of your credibility in your profession, what you're offering. So let's say you made a bad financial decision. Well, how can you talk about that? If you're talking to people about their finances, you want to make sure that they can trust you. So for me, that's just been an interesting journey in growing my business, growing net worth personally and as a business. I want to be able to talk about it, but I also want to make sure that I'm being wise about how I do that. And so I found for myself that I've just zeroed in on just a couple people in my life where I really feel comfortable and safe and I can be totally transparent. And that's been really important for me. I can be transparent about the good decisions, the decisions I don't like, the things I did in the past, the things I'm doing now. But on top of that, encouraging my clients to be transparent, the people that I work with.
So I'm curious, do you see there being a distinction between financial transparency as it relates to your personal well-being and your mental state and your professional ability to maintain credibility, market and sell your services? How do you distinguish between the two, and where do you find it being most beneficial, this idea of the financial transparency as you're describing it?
Yeah, that's a great question. The transparency is probably the most beneficial on the personal side. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek because as a business owner, my personal finances and my business finances often are very connected.
We could talk about that too.
Yeah, that's kind of just the way it goes.
It's called commingling funds. No, I'm just kidding. Keep going.
Yeah, really. That's the bad way to do it. So for me, the personal, being transparent personally with someone has been the most helpful. And that's because, again, I come very much from a state of being. So if I'm feeling calm and clear around my personal finances, that's what I'm going to bring to my business.
What I hear you referring to, and I'm glad you brought back this state of being, is I think you're dealing with, in your own way, this imposter syndrome that so many people experience. You're being true to yourself, and this financial transparency is you're being open and vulnerable with those insecurities. Is that a fair way of describing it?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Finding space to be somewhere safe to be open and vulnerable about it, because it truly is the only way to, like you said, kind of push away that imposter syndrome, where you can feel encouraged, affirmed. And, it's all a mind game. It's all psychology. It's mindset, right? Maybe you didn't make horrible financial decisions, but what's important is how you feel about it. And having that outlet to be able to be vulnerable about it. So, yeah.
I personally describe it as being that essence of confidence. I feel that in business, you've got to be able to look the peer or the business owner, the potential customer in the eye, and be able to confidently say you can take care of whatever product or service that is you're offering, that what you have can take care of that need that they're expressing. And so that confidence comes from a lot of what we're discussing here, the state of being, this idea of being comfortable in our own shoes, being comfortable with ourselves. Just there's a lot to that. I'm curious, when you look at your business now and the relationships you have with your clients, is this a common part of the conversations that you might be having with them? Is this kind of a top level discussion, or is this more underlying the relationship?
A couple of clients, some of the clients, it maybe is underlying, but a lot of my clients, we get to that very specifically because they'll say to me, I'm uncomfortable talking about this, or I just don't like looking at my numbers, especially maybe they haven't scheduled with me like they're supposed to, that sort of thing. I just didn't want to look, or I'm so nervous about this meeting, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so when those comments are made, I address it directly, and I talk about, there's absolutely there's nothing to be ashamed about, because there is nothing to be ashamed about. Let's talk about it. Knowledge is power. Seeing gaps is power. There's no bad news here. Everything we're going to talk about is going to give us power to act on what we want. So it does come out directly.
That's very interesting, because one of the things that comes to mind as you're sharing that is where I have conversations about people's relationship with money. And that's that word relationship. There's people that have their own mindsets, abundance, scarcity, but it's also how they were raised. The phrases that a lot of times people will quote will be, money doesn't grow on trees. And it's this psychology that we as children are raised with. And then you become a business owner and you think money's only made if you work very hard. Money's only made if you surrender and sacrifice. And when you talk to people that are successful and they get into this abundance mindset, they look at money so differently. It's like it's just out there in the ether and it's just ready to be had. You just got to grab it. And it's fascinating to talk to people that have that mindset of abundance simply because they don't see what they're doing as work, as suffering, as sacrifice. They oftentimes will just speak of it as it's a state of being, as you're describing it. So obviously this idea of relationship with money is something that resonated. What would you like to add?
No, yeah, I ask, first of all, I even ask some of my clients, especially if they're coming to me specifically for CFO, I'll ask them, what did they learn about money growing up? So like that, you said that. But yeah, relationship with money has been the main thing I have worked on personally. And so it's bled into my relationships with my clients and my team members in the last year. And I have gone some people would call it a little bit excessive route of I actually am treating money like a person.
Oh, good.
So, so I think to myself, how in a relationship, when someone I ask them to spend time with me and they act like it's this huge sacrifice, or they want to ignore me, or they want to neglect me, or they tell me that I'm never enough for them, I'm never there for them, how would I feel?
Yeah.
So that's been kind of how I've been mentally approaching it in the last couple of years, because I love abundance. And the other thing so that's my relationship with money, like really treating it like a relationship and kind of coaching my clients to do that. I think that's helped a lot of my clients picture it differently. And I love abundance for sure. I just read a book it's called How to Be a Buddhist Millionaire.
Okay.
But he just talks about how many currencies there are in the world. Money isn't the only, or in our existence, money isn't the only currency.
I like that.
There's so much abundance around, like time is a currency, love is a currency.
Yes.
So.
I like that. It's not even just a concept, it's a truth. I think there's a lot of ways that we exchange with one another. And I think listening is a very basic form of let's say, exchange, simply because of the fact if I feel ignored, if I feel as if you don't care what I have to say, all of a sudden there's not an exchange going on here. I'm going to become indifferent to this relationship. And so there's got to be that give and take. And you're so right. Or the Buddhist monk is, in the sense of saying there's a lot more than just a physical currency of let's say, $1. It's definitely something beyond that. So that's wonderful. That's very insightful. So this is going to really kind of change up the conversation a little bit. When you look at your relationship with your clients and this financial transparency that you're bringing to the relationship, I'm wondering, what would you describe the services you provide as in just a very typical set? Normally, I talk of 3 core services being made up of bookkeeping, accounting, tax planning and preparation, CFO, and advisory. How would you describe what it is to your clients so that they can both understand and appreciate what it is they're paying for and you're doing?
Yeah. I think I do break it up very similarly. I tend to use the phrase kind of one-stop accounting, collaborative accounting offers and services. But I definitely would break it up into those 3 where I talk about we can do bookkeeping and accounting, and we can also provide the tax strategy and tax prep that go along with that. And then we also can add that extra layer of CFO consultation and advisory. So just what you said. And again, it's kind of fun when I'm doing a discovery call or I'm speaking with a prospect, bringing that state of being in. One of the things that I like to bring into conversations and relationships is collaboration.
Okay.
So I want those 3 pieces of accounting, right, to collaborate with each other. And that's kind of what I want to communicate to the prospect or the client that I'm talking to as well, that's what we're envisioning is here are the 3 places where accounting comes into play, money comes into play, numbers come into play.
Yeah.
And let's see how we can collaborate those 3 the best.
I love it. This topic right here, I'm very passionate about, simply because I've been working with so many accounting professionals to really consider which of these services they also should be providing. It's fascinating to me. You're providing each of them. I just recently published a book where I talk about these 3 core services and what they look like. So this is very top of mind for me. So I want to ask, when you're working with your clients, which of those 6 things do you feel they most value and appreciate that they feel they're paying for and getting?
That's a great question, because, there's the value is a feeling.
That's
it's
right.
Not always based on reality.
Uh-huh.
Tax strategy is one, and that's because I don't know what tax culture looks like in other countries. I can't speak to other cultures, but I do know here in America, that is a big deal, right? There's entire industries built around it. So tax strategy is probably one of the top services that people value. And the other one is it's kind of interesting. It's the CFO advisory.
Uh-huh.
So being able to manage the money. But what's interesting about it is that they're not always communicating the value of the CFO advisory is a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, it's more ethereal. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I have clients who are just utilizing bookkeeping and accounting, they kind of get advice from us no matter what, because that's just who we are. And that's what they value. That's why they keep coming back to us for bookkeeping and accounting. But if we try to just, okay, now we're going to charge you for the consulting, they don't translate that that's the value they were getting. So getting good at verbalizing why it's the consulting and the advisory that they're valuing is really important.
Yeah. As you're describing this, I'll add something that I've experienced as I've worked with business owners. When it comes to both bookkeeping and tax preparation, I feel that is those business owners that are looking for peace of mind. They're willing to pay for that necessary thing that they know they're supposed to have. It's not, they don't use it. I mean, the bookkeeping is just compliance. The tax prep, it's filed. I paid my taxes. But where you get into more of the emotional state, it's definitely the accounting. When somebody's willing to pay for accounting services, they're looking for some perspective and insights on their business that they feel they don't have because they're involved in the day-to-day, and they're asking for your outside perspective, and they're paying for it. And they're like, I need your perspective to help me make more informed business decisions. Help me understand what's going on here. And then when you're talking about tax planning or strategy, one of the things that really resonates that I find with business owners is they've worked so hard for this money. And talk to a business owner who has paid in taxes more than they've taken home. Think about it. A business is going well and they have an income, and Uncle Sam took home as taxes more than they brought into the house. That is just so debilitating. And so anytime you can go to them and help them come up with a strategy to take advantage, and I use that word kind of loosely. It's not advantage in the sense that the tax code is written for these things to be done, but it's for them to be able to leverage these to legally lower their tax liability. And there's such a sense of, I work so hard, I got to keep what I made. And I applaud those people that are willing to spend the money on the tax planning or strategy side of things. But the CFO and advisory, this is where I think your being becomes a little bit more relevant. They're trying to figure out, okay, how do I implement things in the business that affect the cultural relationship I have with employees, that I affect my relationship with my vendors, with my customers. It's more high level. It's more visionary. It's more, I'm trying to be true to myself, and that's different than all the other services. It's really at that advisory and CFO level where you start to talk about, morals, rights, wrongs, exit strategy, purpose, being. That's where I think all those things start to come in. Would you agree with me?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, and I appreciate hearing your experiences as well. I know you've been doing this a long time. Do you think that it's easy as an owner of an accounting firm, how would you best communicate that to a prospect or client or in your marketing, that value in the CFO advisory? Or is it a matter of just finding the people who are ready for that because they're in a place where they're ready for that?
Well, first of all, the readiness is, I think, key. They're not going to spend the money unless they feel the value, need the value, see the value. So you can cognitively help them realize how important what we're offering is. Until they emotionally need it, they're not going to make the decision to pay for it. And I think that's how we are as human beings. We like to think logically we're making decisions when we spend money. More importantly, it's the emotional. You're excited about it. I can't tell you how many times there's things, for example, in my closet or whatever that still have a price tag on them. You've never used them, but boy, they sure did look good when you were looking at them on the rack. And I think that's just human nature. But to answer your question, how I'd choose to define what we do, and this is after years of figuring this out, we found that by explaining our services in 5 ways, it resonates with the business owner in such a way that they're intrigued enough to ask, tell me more, and learn a little bit more about the services to the point that we can then extend the offer and have them pay for it. And the 5 services that we describe are engage and manifest, understand accounting, increase revenue, improve profits, build value. I'll tell you right now, of those, two of them make no sense. Two of them, they don't see any value in them. The first being engage and manifest. They're like, you're going to do what with me? And I'm going to pay you to do what? They just don't understand it. The other is the last, which is build value, like build value, like build the worth of my company. I don't understand. And that's the whole exit strategy and valuation of the business. What they're willing to pay for is, I don't understand my accounting. Can you help me understand my numbers better and so forth? So they're willing to pay you. You're an accounting professional, so they're expecting to pay you for that. But increased revenue, okay, that's intriguing. How are you going to help me with my top line revenue? I don't understand that. What are you going to do to help me there? And to explain, no, I'm here to literally help you determine where you're spending your money, what you're doing to get an ROI, whether or not this advertising or this marketing is working, whether or not you should continue here, whether or not your salesperson here is making the money they ought to, or are they costing you more money. That whole insight there intrigues them. And so they're willing to pay you for your service if you're telling them that you're focused on helping them increase revenue. And then when you're talking about improving profit, you can help me improve my profit, keep more money. And so it's all this philosophy of profit first, what I refer to as making profit intentional and deliberate. And the business owner is really drawn to those first three things, and they're willing to pay for those. But we begin with engage and manifest. And ultimately what happens is that's probably one of the most powerful being moments, if you will, simply because of the fact that they've probably never verbally expressed why they're in business, what it is they do, why it matters, why they sacrifice, why they put their home, got a second mortgage on their home, why they went without paychecks for a period of time so that they could cover the vendors and the payroll. You hear about the sacrifices that they made to keep the business alive. And it's kind of like the relationship you were describing earlier with money. It's what is that emotional relationship? And I make it a relationship with the business. I really feel like you do with money. The business is a living, breathing entity of which the business owner is the guardian. And they're making decisions for the well-being of this entity. And you need to have an entity that is really happy with that relationship. And a business owner, this is something they can emotionally connect with. Well, when you're talking to them about that simple concept of engage and manifest, their minds are oftentimes just blown as to what they're doing as a leader, what they're doing as a business owner, how are they coming to the market as an entrepreneur. And notice, I haven't even talked about numbers, understanding the accounting. I haven't gotten into increasing revenue, improving profit. I'm not talking about value. They're just having this experience at that maybe first 4 to 6 weeks of, I'm finally verbally expressing myself and I'm being understood. And it's my accountant that's doing this. So it's kind of like, wow. But that's how I would explain what the services are that we provide.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And you're absolutely right that getting to know and drawing that out of the business owner as far as the whys and all that, that's fantastic. It's very important.
Well, thank you. So let me go back to you. I'm kind of curious. Obviously, you started the business. You were a stay-at-home mom, as you mentioned. I'm wondering, what would you say to your younger self as you've reflected on the things that you've had to deal with as you've built your business and so forth? What would you say to your younger self as advice or as a word of counsel?
It's kind of funny. I will answer that, and I will also provide, I feel like my younger self has a lot of wisdom to offer me now. What I would definitely counsel my younger self, though, is that you're going to be all right. Like you are an amazing problem solver. You're an amazing solution finder. And that, we all struggle with it when we're younger, but truly just be comfortable in your own skin. Like, just you are who you are, and that's fantastic. Finding that comfort in your own skin.
I love it. So keep going then.
Well, I was going to say my younger self to me, though, I think would say, take the risk, do it, kind of that. So when I was a couple different experiences, I was in college and decided I wanted to visit and live in a country that was majority Muslim. I like the Arab culture, and Islam fascinated me. And I just did it, I tell people that story and they're like, what, why, why would you do that? And I just went somewhere and lived, I graduated college and went somewhere and lived to learn Spanish because I just wanted to be bilingual. I just did it. There was no risk assessment. And, so that's something that I often draw from my younger self.
I love it. Definitely ambitious and adventurous. Having lived overseas myself, I agree. Getting exposed to another culture is amazing.
Yeah.
And living a different lifestyle is incredible. And honestly, coming back to the United States, it's you're much more grateful and appreciative of what you have around you. So
yeah, I remember that was one of the things that we connected when we first met, was that we both loved travel and different cultures. So it's so important.
Very true. Next question. The idea of being an entrepreneur is oftentimes hard and so forth. What do you hope those around you that you love and care for are learning from your experience, from your example?
Truly that you can create your world. You can create the reality around you. That is truly one of the most important things. And something that goes along with that people don't always associate the two is being your word. So I can create a healthy body as long as I keep my word. Like I told myself I was going to work out and eat well because I wanted to be healthy. So I kept my word and I created that reality for myself. So that is really important to me, that people see it. And it's important because it also creates that state of being, right? So if I'm content and happy in my world, it's because I've created this world that I'm content and happy in, And some of it's perspective. I'm not trying to say that you magically pull things out of the air. Sometimes maybe something happens that someone would see as bad, and I just choose not to see it that way. It's creating that reality. Yeah.
I love that. That really resonates with me, by the way. I just had a conversation yesterday with a colleague of mine, and we were talking about what I learned more than 30 years ago. It was a number of presuppositions. And one of the presuppositions that I was taught is presume positive intent. And when you interact with other people and you always just take the presumption of they're making the best decision they know and they're not doing anything malicious, it just changes your relationship with other people. And I realize there are evil people out there. I know that there are people that are ill intent, let's say, but I choose not to live a life where I'm just in a state of fear or panic all the time. And so that's one of the things that I really try to focus on. So then the last thing I wanted to ask, and I think this is really important, is you have principles, you have standards and so forth that you've alluded to. Is there a quote or a mantra that you use in business that is kind of your beacon or guiding light that you kind of reference?
In business, I will say, as probably true for a lot of people, my mantra often changes. But there's probably two. One in business is I do what I say I'm going to do.
Okay.
That's a big one. And the other one may sound kind of elementary, but maybe preschool even. But it's everything is always working out.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Just to stay in a positive mindset. That is wonderful. I like you were saying, it's that being. What being do you choose to be? What is your reality?
Yeah.
And I choose to be happy. I choose to believe that things are going well. I choose to recognize and see the things that I'm grateful for and focus on those things. And that's the life I want to be living. That's what I want to experience. And so I wake up with a full heart and a very positive mindset, and that's how I choose to do it. So I like that. That's really good. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of recap a little bit of what we've been discussing here today and summarize our conversation and come back to you, Michelle, for a closing thought. Before I jump into my summary, I do want to invite the listeners, if you haven't already, to definitely subscribe to the podcast. In subscribing, you literally do get notified as to each and every episode as it's released, which we do weekly. And at the same time, with the subscription, I encourage you to go back and listen to our past episodes. It's in those past discussions that you'll find other little gems hearing from the experts is what it is they've been doing to run their business to, in fact, have the premier accounting firm. Go ahead and binge those things. There's definitely topical things that you can find. For information as to how a lot of these podcasts are organized and clustered, we've put together a highlight section that you can find in the episode description. You can go to universalaccounting.com as well and find there the podcasts organized in some clusters of topics. And we want to encourage you to check those out if you're interested in binging specific things. Now, with regards to offers today for the episode description, you can go to basically there to receive a copy of 2 free ebooks. These books are ones that all accounting professionals should have and use in their business as they're working on their companies, and also at the same time taking to their clients as to what they should be doing as they're implementing things in their business per your instruction and advice. These are must-haves additions to every accountant's library to provide accounting, bookkeeping, tax services, particularly CFO and advisory. The first one is In the Black, 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. The second is Red to Black in 30 Days. It is a quick turnaround guide for accounting professionals to help take their clients from red to black. So definitely go to the episode description and you can find there the information you need to get a copy of each of these books so you can provide quality services as, in fact, a profit and growth expert for your client. Now, with that being said, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've really enjoyed speaking with Michelle. She has given some insights as to what we can do with regards to our accounting services to go beyond the numbers. I love this state of being, not only ourselves, but how we're able to help our clients get into a little bit more harmony as to the principles, morals, values that they have and be true to themselves as they're running their businesses. And I think this is a great concept to kind of bring into the tasks and all the hustle and bustle of what we do on a day-to-day basis. I think it just kind of evens things out and more importantly, gives us a little bit more calm to our day-to-day lives. I like the financial transparency, being vulnerable. I liked how she felt that speaking with or having that group of individuals with whom she can be open and honest was very helpful, if nothing else, for her mental stability and sanity. I think that's so true. So oftentimes we kind of bottle things up, some of the frustrations we experience, especially as we're not perfect and at the same time can make mistakes. But it's owning those and identifying how they really kind of define who we are. And we are a cluster of those experiences, and we need to embrace those. I think we do learn, at least should learn, from some of those mistakes or not so great choices. And I liked how that came up in the conversation. I loved how she is offering all 3 core services. That was a wonderful discussion as to what those are, and more importantly, what the client is paying for at the end, whether it be the peace of mind, the insights, the ability to keep what it is they're making. Lots of things that the business owner is ultimately paying for rather than just the tasks that we're performing. And I thought that was a really healthy conversation. Loved her insights as to advice to her past self and from her past self to today. I think we all can learn from basically our past. And really, if we look back on the wonderful decisions we've made that have gotten us this far in our journey, we can really appreciate some of the sacrifices that we've made ourselves in our own lives. So lots of insights there. The other thing that really kind of stood out to me was this reference to the book of the Buddhist millionaire, just the different ways in which we transact with one another. I thought that was a really important distinction and an excellent reminder, really, a reminder of the fact that there are so many other ways in which we transact with one another. And I think if we can just recognize that we as human beings have more than just this financial transaction, we have an emotional transaction and time, money, feelings. Those things are all very important and valuable, especially when you're able to be vulnerable with someone. And that is something that's irreplaceable. So I hope that everyone could kind of identify with that. So Michelle, thank you for those insights. Do you have a final thought for us?
I just really appreciated the opportunity to be a guest, and I do hope that those listening, I know most of you are probably own your own accounting firms, that the multiple currencies that Roger just mentioned, it is so easy for us to focus on money because that's what we do every day. And with our clients, with our teams, if we can really expand that vision to all of the currencies that are around us, I think that's important for us in particular, since that's what we do every day.
Beautiful. Difficult to quantify, but definitely worth tracking and paying attention to. So Wonderful. So everyone, definitely go to the episode description to get some more information about this. Check out the free resources there. As I mentioned, definitely subscribe if you haven't already to the podcast and go back and binge watch or binge listen to some of the episodes that we've had. You would want to also check out GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual event that we do for accounting professionals to help them work on their business. It's traditionally held every May, and this is going to be a wonderful year. We, in fact, have Michelle coming and speaking at our conference in May. We're excited to hear from her expertise, and her insights. So if you haven't already, register for GrowCon and join us for that each and every year. And it's definitely an event you don't want to miss when you get to hear from the experts, visit and interact with your peers, and learn from those that are actually being successful. As for the podcast itself, obviously we're talking about various principles that you can apply in your business. If you'd like to learn more about these or discuss them further, feel free to reach out to us here at Universal Accounting. You can give us a call at 801-265-3777, or you can visit us at universalaccountingschool.com. It's there that you'll get the information you need to work on your business, looking at the training, certifications, coaching, and support that are provided by Universal Accounting Center. And with all that being said, take care, be safe, and always remember this: if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care, everyone.